don't know how to be a sober adult. I'm approaching 30, and I've reached a point in my life where I'm forced to reckon with just how deeply marijuana has defined my day-to-day existence. It's strange because on paper, my life looks fine. Better than fine, maybe. I have a house, a decent paying job, a position of responsibility overseeing more than 20 people. I handle finances and daily management tasks without any apparent issues. And yet, I've been high more or less every day for the past 12 or 13 years. That means I've never really lived as a sober adult. For me, smoking weed began the way it does for a lot of people. Casually, in my early teenage years, I might smoke on a Friday or Saturday, hanging out with friends in someone's basement or a park. But before long, it grew into a nearly constant habit. By the time I'd graduated high school and moved into my own place, it became an all-day, everyday routine. I'd wake up, smoke, head off to work with some sort of THC in my system, and then come home to smoke more. Eventually, it got to the point that if I couldn't smoke flower, I'd smoke cartridges. If carts weren't an option, I'd eat edibles. One way or another, I always made sure I was high. The wild part is that no one seems to notice. My tolerance is so high that I don't come across as dazed or slow, and I'm able to function like it's second nature. Family members, friends, co-workers, they've all only known me this way. It's as though the person they've interacted with is just the high version of me. My boss and co-workers trust me, and I manage my job responsibilities effectively, so as far as they're concerned, I'm just a reliable employee who shows up every day and does the work without drama. Personally, my friends, partners, acquaintances, everyone knows I smoke, but they might not realize just how continuous it is. They've never really seen me in a prolonged sober state, so they have no basis for comparison. Hitting 29 last November triggered something in me. I started reflecting on the past decade or so and wondering if this is what I want for the rest of my life. I recognize that I've missed out on a version of adulthood that's not clouded by THC. It's not about demonizing weed. I don't think of it as the ultimate evil. It's more about realizing that I've used it as a crutch or a backdrop for everything I do. That includes my job, my leisure time, my relationships, big milestones like moving into my own house. Through all of these chapters, I've been high, and at some level, I just don't want that anymore. I don't want to wake up each morning thinking, okay, how do I make sure I stay high today? As though that's the only way I can function. So over the past couple of months, I've tried to quit, unsuccessfully. I'll put myself in a situation where I promise, today, I'm not going to smoke. And for the first few hours, I manage eat pie. But then, by midday, that's all I can think about. My mind starts racing. When can I grab the vape pen? Where can I pick up an edible? Should I step outside for a moment? It becomes so consuming that I can't focus on anything else. It's not just a mild craving. It's like a singular obsession. Eventually, I cave, take a hit, or pop a gummy, and the cycle continues. That immediate relief I feel is overshadowed by frustration that I couldn't hold out longer than a few hours. The difficulty I'm facing isn't just the physical act of smoking or ingesting THC. It's the fact that I don't know who I am without it. Since my mid-teens, I've been stoned. That means I've never done the adult parts of life, living independently, holding down a steady job, handling serious responsibilities. While fully sober, the idea of going to work and being fully in my own head is unfamiliar. The notion of just hanging out with friends, or dealing with daily stresses, or cooking a meal in the evening, without the cushion of a high is foreign. It's as if weed has become woven into my identity, and extracting it feels like I'm pulling apart the threads of who I am. I think a lot about the potential damage. Marijuana is often framed as less harmful than other substances, and in many ways that's true. But I'm worried about what a consistent 12 or 13-year habit has done to my ability to cope with stress, connect with people, or even just feel comfortable in my own skin. I never gave myself the chance to develop sober coping mechanisms. If I'm angry, bored, sad, or anxious, weed has always been my go-to solution. It's my numbing agent, my stress reliever, my boredom killer. Now, imagining a life without it sparks genuine anxiety. I wonder if I can handle challenging situations, like a tough day at work, personal conflicts, or even just a boring weekend, without that fallback. It's possible that many people around me suspect something or realize I smoke frequently, but they accept it because it doesn't appear to affect my performance or social interactions negatively. There's a stereotype that heavy smokers become lethargic or unproductive, but I haven't seemed to fit that mold. I'm sure some folks have their silent judgments, but no one has confronted me about it. And because I keep my job tasks in order, no boss or coworker has ever said, "Hey, are you high right now?" Or, Is your mind all there? So in a way, the habit has been reinforced by the fact that it hasn't caused outward problems. Except with me, internally, now that I'm craving a change. Of course, there's a part of me that wants to blame my environment or my routine. I tell myself, well, if my job were different, or if I lived in a place where weed wasn't so accessible, maybe I wouldn't rely on it. But deep down, I know it's not about external factors. It's about the comfort I get from being consistently elevated, about the habit that's persisted for so many years that it's second nature. If I moved to a new city tomorrow, I'd probably seek out a dispensary or a dealer within days. It's about me recognizing this loop and deciding I want out. The question remains, how do I actually do this? Most advice I find online is geared toward people who have more immediate life-threatening issues, like opioids or extreme alcoholism. There's a consensus that marijuana addiction is often subtler. It doesn't tend to lead to catastrophic overdoses or physical withdrawal symptoms quite as severe as those from harder drugs. But there's definitely a psychological grip that can feel unbreakable. And that's what I'm dealing with. One approach might be seeking professional help, like talking to a therapist who specializes in substance use. Another might be joining a group, whether it's something akin to a 12-step program designed for marijuana users, or an online community where people share their quitting journey. Some people say exercise helps, or new hobbies. But it's tricky, because I'm so used to doing everything high, that I'm not sure how to enjoy those hobbies sober. A regular exercise routine might be the simplest starting point. Something to release endorphins and keep me busy. Yet every time I think about going for a run or hitting the gym, the voice in my head goes, why not smoke first? I can imagine a transitional period where I cut down in stages. For instance, maybe I limit myself to nights only, or just once a day. However, given my pattern, moderation is challenging. I've tried in the past to say, okay, only after work, but the midday craving kicks in, and I give in more often than not. That might be an argument for going cold turkey, but the thought of that is daunting. It's like stepping onto a tightrope without a net after years of relying on that net. Another aspect is whether I can be open about this with anyone in my real life. Should I tell my close friends, look, I've realized I have a problem, and I need help quitting? They might be surprised because I'm the high-functioning stoner, the one who can hold a conversation, handle finances, be social, and still keep inhaling or ingesting THC day after day. But maybe their support would be valuable. If my best friend or sibling or coworker knew I was seriously trying to be sober, they could hold me accountable, notice if I'm slipping, or at least provide emotional encouragement. On the other hand, there's a risk. If I confide in a coworker who doesn't understand, that might jeopardize my job security if they start judging my reliability. I'm not sure how safe it is to share that side of me. It might also help to reframe weed in my mind, not as a demon to be banished, but as something that served a purpose when I was younger and has now outlived its usefulness. I could be grateful that it got me through teenage stress and early adult transitions, but also recognize that it's limiting me from experiencing who I might be without it. That's the crux. Curiosity. I'm genuinely curious who I am day to day if I'm not stoned. How do I react to minor inconveniences, to major stressors, to boredom on a Tuesday night? Could I rediscover old interests I've let slide? Could I be even more efficient at work than I already am? Maybe I'd develop different relationships, form deeper connections with people who don't smoke. Maybe I'd feel more confident, or maybe I'd face some anxieties head-on that I've been numbing out. Either way, I suspect there's a version of me that I haven't allowed to flourish. I'm leaning toward a multi-pronged strategy. Talk to a mental health professional, set up some structure or routine to replace smoking times, and let at least one trusted friend or family member know I'm trying to quit. Step by step, I'll try to lengthen the time between smokes until maybe I can go a day or two, and eventually a week or a month, without relying on THC. During those times, I'll need to find new coping mechanisms, like writing, exercising, or even meditating, so I'm not just white-knuckling every craving. If I slip up, I'll try not to see it as total failure. Just a lesson that I need to keep adjusting my approach. It's scary for sure, because weed has been part of me for nearly half my life. But I don't want to hit 40 and realize another decade went by in a haze. I want to know, once and for all, what it's like to be a sober adult. Someone who deals with problems and celebrates milestones fully conscious and present. Even if I find out it's not as dazzling as I'd hoped, at least I'll have given myself the chance to experience it. And who knows, maybe once I break the habit, I'll discover clarity or a sense of self I've been missing. Maybe I'll find out I'm capable of more than I thought. If I can do that, If I can prove to myself that I can truly stop, then weed can become a choice rather than a necessity. That's the goal I'm aiming for. A life where I'm free to decide, each day, who I am without automatically reaching for a high.